right there.
That was the big turning point for us because now that I'm honest with myself, I used to think when I was an entrepreneur, I became an entrepreneur because I was level 10 or 11 on a scale of 1 to 10 in a few different areas. And so I had some real gifts to share with the world, and I could do all these things. And I was going to study, and I was going to push hard, and I was going to be premier. I was going to be cutting edge. I was going to do all these things.
Mm.
And the areas that I didn't know, I was so awesome at everything else. Of course, I could be awesome at that too with some study and some pressure. I'm going to work the late hours. I'm going to push through this. I'm going to create this. I'm going to, make all these things happen. And I was trying my best to be the one man show or the one
Mm.
family show. I'd weigh on my wife. Hey, we got to do this. Hey, if we just do a few more extra late nights, we can punch this out. And that's going to help so much of the business or so many people. And we're going to be able to do all these things. And you know what we got? We got at that point I would say we excelled up to a mediocre company because we were doing everything and I couldn't do everything
Yeah.
to attend.
Welcome, entrepreneurs. I'm Skylar Schisler, the host of the show, The Entrepreneur Theory. And today I have a guest that has been a pivotal person in what we have, our transition from Colorado to Florida. A year ago, we attended a church and we met this gentleman and his family just because we're trying to get with the community. We're trying to meet new people and we're trying to grow some new roots. And that'll actually go into later about what he does for a living. But they have just been a great family. My wife hangs out with his wife, Kate, all the time, at least once a week. And they've added so much value to our family. But now on the side, Josh and we actually spend a lot of time just talking shop. We talk about business, we talk about social media. He is currently launching some businesses, and we've had a lot of conversations about what it takes to start a business and how to form a business plan. And I just thought it'd be a great opportunity to bring him on board and share with you what that process looks like and some of his background. Before we kind of introduce you to him, though, I just want to let you know this man has gone from ministry to business owner, and he is the true definition of what an entrepreneur is. Now, we've talked to a lot of people, and I'll get his take on what an entrepreneur is, but I really see him adding value in a space that is kind of neglected. And I'll let him share more on that, but I just love his tenacity. I love his ability to see problems and find solutions and the positivity. One last thing I do want to share with you, though. When I first met Josh, he's kind of a quiet guy when you first meet him. And then I attended one of his classes, and this teacher came out of nowhere that I was like, what? Is that the same Josh? He became animated and funny, and not that he's not funny outside of teaching. He's actually, it just surprised me how amazing he can articulate a message. And I'm sure that comes from ministry. I'm sure that comes from leading people. So guys, without further ado, please let me introduce Josh Richter to the show.
Hi, everybody. Like you said, I'm Josh, and I'm so glad to be with you. I can be here with you. Oh, my word. Yeah, as for funny, I don't know about that. My wife tells me all the time that I'm not. So uh, you have to decide
Don't
who you
all
believe.
wives?
Right?
Yeah, don't,
They thought
yeah,
we were
don't
funny
all
while we were
wives.
dating, and then after that, now we're not.
Absolutely. So I mentioned right when I first introduced you about being in ministry for 15 years. Can you give us a little side history of going down that path and how you became a business owner and some of the things you wanted to solve in the marketplace?
Sure, yeah. It all started, we were in children's ministry for about 15 years, and then we assisted in the church in a bunch of other areas. We took over media ministry, and in the church world, it's called assimilation, uh, onboarding for those in uh, secular. It's the same thing exactly, and help people get on board and understand who we are as an enterprise and uh, really partner with it. And so we did all those, and then we began to coach others on how to do what we were doing. But we continued to notice that there was a real need in the churches to reach people outside of the church, and everything mainly was driven and centered around the Sunday morning service, which left 167 hours a week open, that they had no spiritual impartation in. And so God really brought us on a journey, my wife and I, to, how we could equip families to engage with God outside of church. And that's where
Mhm.
a lot of these things came. It started with Root Bible Academy, and we've made which is an online education platform. So everywhere from preschool all the way through adult, there's classes that you can take, live interactive, and grow spiritually between Sundays. It doesn't have to just be a Sunday morning. And so we have those things. We have a bunch of new things go rolling out, which are super fun. Root Kidman, yeah, we're just assisting children's ministries to actually make a long-term difference. Most of them are just babysitting, and there's so much you can do. There's so many stats about the general perspective of every human being is set by age 12. So what kind of perspectives, what kind of world outlook do you want your kids to have, your family to have? And it's such a pivotal time in their life that as family, as parents, as grandparents, aunts and uncles, we can choose to sow into them and help propel them down a path that's really going to equip them for a life of success.
Mhm.
Or we can ignore it and let them fail and make a lot of tough decisions and a lot of tough encounters in life that I don't want anybody that I know and value to go through. And it really starts with a young age. And then
Mhm.
God just continues to open our eyes into more things that uh, people just don't realize how pivotal, why can't I say that word today? uh, just key
It's just
aspects in life are. We value and we um, strategize, and we put all of our time and our energy and our focus into so many things as Americans that have no long-term benefit. All of our conversations and the things we meditate on are here today, and 3 years from now we won't even care. It won't have any impact on our life. And so we're really changing how we're outputting to help change that culture, and that we as Americans can come to the top of the food chain, become the real leaders in the world, not because we know all the stats of this or that, or we watch every episode of whatever it is, but that we can recognize what is about to happen, what God is going to do in the world, or what the enemy wants to roll out, and circumvent that, or set up things so that when things hit the fan, we already have the answer for it. And that's how I think we as Americans, we as entrepreneurs for sure, we want to be. There's just not a whole lot of coaches showing us how to get there. And so that's why I'm so glad for things like entrepreneur theory. Skylar's been able to sow into what we're doing on the secular and in ministry with just some real world wisdom that he has. And so, anyway, that's a quick synopsis of who we are and what we're
Thank you.
doing.
You mentioned something about children's ministry that my wife and I, traveling across the country, we found churches along the way, and we've put our kids into those ministries, and we're really
Mhm.
grateful for them. But you can tell which ministries are teaching kids, and you can tell which ones are babysitting, and
Oh,
that was
yeah.
such a great point. um, the life lessons that are taught through the Bible, it's one of the greatest books ever written on
Hmm.
even just the knowledge of how to live your everyday life, how to deal with
Yeah.
upset, how to treat people with respect, how to have faith in something that you can't understand. And I can tell when my kids are learning those stories, I can tell the wheels are turning and they almost become way better kids. What are your
Hmm.
thoughts on, being able to teach the Bible to kids? Basically, I think one thing that you mentioned later, in another conversation prior to this, was how people dumb down the information for kids rather than giving them to them straight so they can learn it for what it really is.
Yeah, it's so funny how we look at babies. Look at the difference in their growth and mental capacities. Not, I shouldn't even say mental capacity, how quickly they're learning, right? They're going from nothing to learning how to crawl, learning how to talk, putting together sentences, and their minds are developed for massive amounts of information assimilation, and not just to take it in, but know how to utilize it and put it into practice. That's why if you talk to so many uh, people outside of the U.S., they have such a huge value for getting their kids around people that speak other languages at a very young age, so that if they can speak it when they're 5 or not, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's inputted at that point. So when they turn 16, 17, 18, they start taking French or Spanish or Italian in school, Mandarin, then it's almost hardwired in them from the beginning. And they're like, I got this. And if they can be fluent in the Romanic languages because of what was put into them. The same thing with Bible. If you can input God's word into their lives, you begin to see the real life transformation of how they think to line up with biblical principles that will steer them around a whole lot of yuck when they're teens, when they're college age. They don't have to go through all that. Why? Because they know what's real. They know the consequences of those things without having to go through it personally. And so that's
Mhm.
what, yeah, teaching kids at a very young age, it's imperative on anything that you value, impart into them. I've met kids that they can whip out all kinds of stats and all kinds of player names with sports because that's what the parents are inputting in them. I can show you young kids that are stellar at the different um, abilities, playing piano or coding, computer coding, crazy things. Why?
Mhm.
Because it was input into them and held as a high value as a kid or by the family. And so what do they do? That information assimilation, high value. I'm taking this. I'm going to run with it. I'm going to win with this. No kid shoots to be second. Have you ever
Mhm.
heard that? No,
No.
no kid settles for that until they've been trained to.
Mhm.
If you tell them, okay, this is who you are, this is what you can do, this is for you, this is who we are as a family, done, settled. That's who they are. That's what they're going to
Right.
achieve. That's what they're going to become
I
until
agree
we
with that
teach them that.
100%. And I've got my oldest son is 6. He just turned 6, and you see that,
Yeah,
some of my worst traits come out in him because it's learned,
right.
and some of my best traits come out in him because it's learned.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to learn to decipher those traits. Well, us as parents, the foundation that we teach our kids about how to treat other people, how
Mm-hmm.
to go towards a goal, how to handle our emotions, how to
Right.
have trust in people that have best interests for us. We have a lot of those people in our life. Sorry, we have a lot of those things that we need to ingrain in them. So, like you said, when they get older and they get put in a rough situation where drugs pop up or,
Mm-hmm.
just bad situations, they know how to navigate through that.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it's so
so
imperative.
so something that we had talked about prior, and maybe I can pry it out of you a little bit, is something that happens with like the middle school, high school age kids when we're talking about ministry. It's a very influential time in their life as well. So, little kids, you've got the foundational. And I think when you have a student or a kiddo that's in that 12 to 18 range, now
Hmm.
it becomes conceptual, right? So
Yep.
you learn the concepts and you learn how to apply when and where and how, right?
That's exact. So you put input. These are the key themes. This is how we view the world at a very young age. And then 12 and up, then it's your time to create a safe zone for them to be able to practice that. At age 12 and older, they're really looking to establish their identity, both as part of the family and as an individual. And so many times it's easy for us because we're used to dealing with them as kids to go into command zone. I need you to do this and do that and XYZ. This is how we do it. Da, 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 da. And what do they begin to do? They begin to push back against it. And you're thinking, no, this isn't how we do family. This, I put down these are the rules. This is why we do it, or what we do. We usually a lot of parents just hit the what's. They don't go into the why that really develops the principles that helps them
Mhm.
walk those things out throughout their life. So if you can do the whys, do it. It's so worth the extra time. But then create that space for them to really begin to discover, hey, what does it look like if I lead? My dad says I'm a leader. He wants me to be a leader. He's been inputting leadership principles in me since I was young. Now I'm going to try to push back and lead the family in some things, and we have to give him space,
Mm,
not just shut it down, which is so easy. No, I'm the leader. I do this. I'm the one. Make space for them to lead and make space for them to fail.
mm.
I don't want my
That
kids' first failures to be when I'm not around. I don't want them to their first failures to be when they're in the business world or when they're at college and they're embarrassed and they don't know who to call and mom and dad are far away and I don't want to admit to my dad that I actually failed and so or to my mom. And so I'm going to try keep this to myself and I'm going to talk to my other friends who haven't been through this situation either. They don't know how to succeed. They don't have the life experience, but I don't know who else to go to, so I'm going to stick with them. That's the worst idea. No, instead, we want to create safe spaces for our kids to be able to test out. Okay, this is who I am, so I'm going to lead the family. I'm going to plan an event. I'm going to whatever and push them beyond even what you know they're capable for to do because they might surprise you.
no,
I'm telling you,
they're
we've done it.
they're
We've
more
seen
than
it
capable.
on missions trips. I've seen it so many different places. I can that makes me think of family. They were a super sporty family. Their lives revolved around sports. They didn't do anything other than the church and sports. That was everything to them. And so their son, who was about 13 years old or so, he was on this missions trip with us, and I was setting up the sound and the projector, and he's like, "Hey, so what does this do, and how does this work?" And so I'm like, "Hey, slide on next to me. I'm going to show you how this works. And tomorrow, I'm going to have you run it, but I'll be right here with you." And he's like, "Seriously? I don't know if I can do that." I'm like, "Well, let's just see." Checked with his dad. His dad's like, "Yeah, we're on mission trip. We'll put him wherever you need him." And so we put him there, and he started doing this tech stuff. Well, by the end of the week, he was setting it up. He was running the services, all the audio, all the video, the slideshows, getting the movies up on the projector, everything, shutting it down, putting away right. It was awesome. And then
Mm,
for me, I got to just kind of gloat and smile and celebrate that I really didn't have to do anything because he was doing it all and he was killing it. And so then I was just giving him pointers. Hey, next time you do this, shortcut is ABC. I've learned to do this way, and this is why. Blah blah blah. I'm just giving. He's like, "Oh, okay, that's great," and he's assimilating that information quickly because now it's hands on again. It's
right.
not just information. We're showing him how to use the information. And he's seeing the effects of that quickly. And so his dad is like, "I never knew he had that in him. That's crazy." So he gets back from the missions trip And right away he goes up to the head of the media team at church. Hey, do you mind if I serve on this? Within the next 6 months, he was running adult ministry teams, youth ministry teams, and serving in children's, helping get them set up, all because space was made available for him to do something that was way outside of what everyone expected.
Yeah.
It pushed him. He took it on, took the challenge, learned it, and really excelled. And so that could be the same way with the people in your business, in your family. Make space for them to fail, to step out, and then just continue. Don't abandon them. Here, this is yours now. You got to do this. It's on you. No, give them the space to learn it, develop, and grow as you continue to hold them accountable and then sow into their life the wisdom that you had. We teach a class called the Root Reboot. It's 21 intense days where it's just the word, and we're hitting perspectives and getting people to see themselves the way God made them to be. And one of my favorite examples, talking about sowing into the next generation, whether that's business or in your family or whatever it is Congo Gumi. I'm sure none of you know who, well, maybe some of you. Congo Gumi, Japanese construction company that started in the late 800s, like not 1800s, 800s. And they started this construction company, and they set from the very beginning that during your working years, the first half you were going to be apprentice, the second half you would be master. And so for the first 15, 20 years of their life as a working individual in their company, they were going to have someone over them that knew how to do it better than they did. And they were going to learn every aspect of framing or whatever it is, roofing, putting whatever, every aspect of that, to where they could do it at minimum as good as their master. With 20 years, you can get there. And then they would have
So cool.
a good 5, 6, 7 years where they're just going to blow it up.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing it where they're just expanding their how they're able to do it, pushing past, and then from that point they go to master. They're going to teach others how to do it exactly how they do it. And so they ended up seeing this kind of structure happening in their company, where without, I think it was within 60, 70 years, which sounds long for us now. Back
Mm-hmm.
then, that's a few generations. They were the premier construction company in all Japan. Actually, if you go to Japan, you can see structures that Congo Gumi built in the 900s, the 1000s, the 1100s. They were the construction company to go to for over 1,000 years.
Wow.
Because they followed that same structure. I'm going to learn for 15, 20 years until I can do it as good as somebody else. And then I'm going to take it, blow it up, become by far better than even my master was. And then I'm going to show you somebody else how to start at that level.
Mm-hmm.
And we get so busy with work, with fun, with all these different aspects that try to pull our attention away, that we forget what really matters. How amazing would your business be if those coming up after a period of time were running at the same level that you were?
Right.
Think about what that could do to your business,
Right.
family wise. Think about passing on. We always say, man, I wish I could just download the information that I have into my kids. That would just be amazing. Like, these are my life experiences. This is how I know how to, swing the hammer or fix a car or do these different things, close a business deal. Guess what? It happens by time. And it's an investment that always pays back.
Time and
Always.
experience.
When you invest your time and your experience into your family, into your employees, you're bringing them up to that next level, next level,
Right.
next level, where
Absolutely. So,
they can be by far excelling above anybody else in their same genre. What were we going to say?
just I know the end of the story, and I know what happens to the company when they deviate away from that. And I want to make sure that you go to the end of this thing because so many people are getting that dopamine hit right now. Like, yes, that's what I need to do. But what's the flip side if you don't do it?
So the flip side is about 1960, when travel became so much easier and affordable around the world, a lot of the Western mentality started to sneak in of, hey, if you have information, you hoard it to yourself because you don't want somebody else to be as good as you or better than you at something because then you're irrelevant. That was our Western mentality. And so that began to sneak in to their company in the 1960s. And so again, remember 1960, they started in the 800s. So we're 1100 and about 1100, 1200 years into this company's existence. It's still the longest running company in existence, no, from start to finish. There is anyone has got close to that because they didn't let go of the model until the 60s. By 1970, they were starting to have some issues. Why? Because now they were at the premiere. No one could even get close to him, but because they didn't hand down those skills, that information, those abilities, all the new people were actually worse off than those of any other construction company because no one was investing in them. Everyone expected them to excel. They expected them to be premier, and so they continued to get jobs, but these new people had no one pouring into them, no one helping them develop those gifts, no one developing, this is who we are as Congo Gumi.
Mm.
And by the 1980s, they were filing for bankruptcy. They got a couple big wins, were able to do some things and hold on for another 18 years or so, but they were actually bought out by a rival construction company purely for name only, for pennies,
Mm.
because they didn't pass the information along. They didn't invest in others. Instead, they hoarded it because they got their value from the information that they held, not from the legacy they left.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
that,
the
right.
principles of, you know, learning how to do the job the right way and the
Mm-hmm.
foundation of what it means to be a skilled carpenter is passed down, right? And then they get to
Right.
teach that. Now let's take that
Right.
into the family. Let's take that into to we just talked about kids. You take
Mm-hmm.
away those fundamentals, and then we wonder why society is just run amok right now. Is because
Right.
we've gone so many generations where we've forgotten to pass down the information that our forefathers had,
Mm-hmm.
and it's almost like we're relearning, and people are almost having to start over fresh each
Yeah.
generation, and it's a
Right.
sad
And
story.
they start fresh, they push through as far as they can, and then that information dies with them, and the next generation has to do the same thing with more inputs screaming in, demanding attention, but less content than ever.
Mm.
There was so many examples. I can give you so many examples of companies that were stellar, and then they handed it off to the next generation and it dove. I can think of ministries that did that. I can think of companies that do that, and think of families that did that. Families that I grew up with, and you're like, oh man, yeah, they're the how they do family is, that's who I always wanted to be. But then the next generation doesn't hand it down, and they lose it
Mm.
all. I
Yeah.
mean, and I can give you a silly example of that even with my grandma. My grandma was a stellar cook. She could craft things. Everybody could not wait for Thanksgiving, Christmas dinners because you know you were going to go there. There was going to be a full buffet spread before you, and everything was obnoxiously good until you ate till you didn't feel good anymore because it was just so delicious.
We
And
all
she
got that grandma.
loved having everybody come and enjoy all this goodies, right? All the
Hmm.
cakes and the cookies and the meatballs and the gravy and literally everything was it was amazing. And so her daughter and her sons in their her daughter-in-laws like, all right, grandma, you got to show me how to do this. No, 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 no. I got this. I love having everybody come to me. I love everybody thinking I have the best of this. And so they're going to come to me for the most amazing food. If you guys make it, then it's just going to be normal. And I want to keep this special thing just for me. And so by the time she was ready to hand it over, she couldn't remember what the recipes were.
Hmm.
Her mind had started to fail and she's like, okay, I want to show you how to do this because I'm just not skilled enough to do it anymore. I can't just whip all these things up. But she struggled with her memory and never wrote it down because she had to keep this to herself. And
Hmm.
now we talk about, we dream about those amazing foods and how good it used to be, but we don't have those get-togethers anymore.
Makes me sad. I was like, man, I want to try some of grandma's food.
Nobody can make it. Oh my word, I wish you could try it. Oh, it was now that I'm salivating thinking about it because it was again above top notch. It's stuff that her mom and her grandmom and whatever had passed down
Mhm.
through the generation. This is how we do things,
Yeah.
and we lost it.
So I love that you've touched on a couple of different stories about sharing information, that abundance mentality, because that's what it takes to be successful in this world, is not hoarding information. That corporate mentality of I'm only gonna give you information if it benefits me to get to the next level, right? That's
Right.
the only time that people will share information. But one thing that most people forget when you're talking about people that either have wealth or they've got a successful business or they're really good at a skill, most of those people are actually very open to sharing that information because they
Mhm.
have abundant mentality. It's the ones that don't that it doesn't move on. And
Yep.
they wonder why their life is so hard, or they wonder why they're not hitting the goals, is because they try to do it all themselves. And I don't know one single person that I've met in almost 20 years of being an entrepreneur that has been a self-made person. Sure, they may have
Right.
came up with an idea, but they needed a team, they needed a mentor, they needed friends, they needed money, they needed all kinds of things that came from outside collectively to make an idea or to transfer that information. And it's just mind blowing that we have that in our society. And I would say,
Hmm.
I mean, I don't have any statistics, obviously, so this is a pluck from thin air, PFA, but um, I would say at least 50% of people that I've worked with over the last 20 years have been hoarders like that of information. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, those are people that don't go on the journey with you. They don't,
Yep.
they don't benefit. And it's really sad. But there's some good stuff that we could talk about, right? Let's pick up the energy, and that is,
Yeah.
you can be the person who shares and has that
Yep.
abundance and watch your life become blessed beyond measure.
That was the
Because
big turning point for us. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, you're good. That's it. That's what I wanted right
That
there.
was the big turning point for us because uh, now that I'm honest with myself, I used to think when I was an entrepreneur, I became an entrepreneur because I was level 10 or 11 on a scale of 1 to 10 in a few different areas. And so I had some real gifts to share with the world. and I could do all these things, and I was going to study, and I was going to push hard, and I was going to be premier, I was going to be cutting edge, I was going to do all these things.
Mm.
And the areas that I didn't know, I was so awesome at everything else. Of course, I could be awesome at that too with some study and some pressure. I'm going to work the late hours. I'm going to push through this. I'm going to create this. I'm going to, make all these things happen. And I was trying my best to be the one man show or the one family show. I'd weigh on my wife. Hey, we got to do this. Hey, if we just do a few more extra late nights, we can punch this out. And that's going to help so much of the business or so many people. And we're going to be able to do all these things. And you know what we got? At that point, I would say we excelled up to a mediocre company because we were doing everything and I couldn't do everything
Yeah.
to attend. Now that I'm more honest with myself, I would say I'm not a 10 in anything. I found so many more people that are good at so many things that I'm good at, but can do it way better and way faster than I can.
Oh, yeah.
And at first, when I started to discover this, it really deflated me. Do I need to just throw in the towel? Maybe I'm not an entrepreneur. Look at them. They're totally, what they can do is so much better. I know they're only in this genre, but man, if they applied that information or those talents or some little bit of energy like this, oh my gosh, they would blow me out of the water. And look at this person. Look. And I started being surrounded with a whole community that was better than I am in all these individual different ways, and I couldn't compete. And really what God was doing, He was crafting me a tribe to run with that we can all pull on each other and pull from each other and make something amazing in so many different ways. I'm not even one thing. We're not making something one thing. What I'm able to invest in their lives and do for them is helping them astronomically more than they would be able to do on their own.
Yeah,
I'm
and that's
pulling
getting
on
rid of
people.
that imposter syndrome, right? Because that's the thing. Is like when you're in a field of so many people that if you put them up on a pedestal, oh, they're better at this and they're better at that, you start to deflate yourself, and that's where imposter
Yep.
syndrome comes from. But if you're like, hey, look, I am not the best at everything. I'm good at a couple of things, and I will stick my neck in when I can fit into that. Other than that, I'm going to be a conductor. I'm gonna make a symphony of ideas, and I'm gonna compose a winning track. And that's what you're gonna do, right? Because one person playing a trumpet sounds right? But a
Right.
whole symphony and somebody conducting an actual song with 100 pieces is magical. It'll give you goosebumps. It'll make the hair on your neck just stand up, right? That's what it feels like to be a successful entrepreneur,
Yep.
is to conduct something that is greater than you could have ever imagined. I love that you said that. And
And that
as you can
transition
say,
for so many people is hard. They want to do they're used to doing everything.
yeah.
And they get their own value from being the provider in all of these areas of everything that you need.
So
When
let's
in
get to the root of
reality,
that. The root is narcissism, right?
right.
That's, in my opinion, it is. I mean, I'm not a clinical person, but I've had to deal with narcissism in my life where
Yep.
I've been egocentric, I guess is maybe a better word, where,
Yeah.
I love how some friends of mine taught me years ago, edging out God, right? It's not staying
Right.
humble and understanding that you are not God. Like, you can't do
Mhm.
everything. You can't fix
Right.
everything. You can't be everywhere at every time and have every answer. You just can't. So once you finally humble yourself and realize you can't be in that space that way, you can't be everything to everyone, guess what? You actually start to do more. You're not
And
paralyzed
understanding
anymore.
what he shows you he wants to happen is not always a mandate for you to make it happen.
Ooh.
Just because
Dang.
he starts to show you things and reveal things to you, or even say, hey, part of my plan for you is to do or accomplish this. Not even do. Part of my plan is accomplishing this for your life. I don't know about you, early on, I'm like, all right, I'm going to build this plan backwards. Here we go. Here's the end goal. Here's my steps. Here's my goals. I'm going to hit some mini goals. Here's what I'm going to celebrate. This is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to start planning it all out, making it happen, pushing through, burning the late night oil, getting sleepless nights. I'm going to make this thing happen. And I'd get weary. I'd get annoyed by the family and the people that God had brought into my life to be a support. Instead, now I'm barking at them and pushing them away because I gotta get this done. This is what God wants me to do. This is who I am. I have to accomplish this, right? And instead of that word bringing life to me, when I took it on and on my own, you know what I created? Death everywhere around me. Struggling. My relationships are struggling. My energy level is struggling. My health is struggling. My focus is struggling because all of these now fires are burning everywhere that I have to try put out, and that's just taking away time from the thing that I'm supposed to be accomplishing. And instead, when we stop long enough to say, okay, this is I'm feeling like God is saying, hey, this is what I'm created to do, or this is the impact He wants me to make in the world. Waiting on that what until you have a how and a when makes all the difference. Not charging through, but saying, okay, you want this to happen? How do you want it to happen, God? Waiting for Him to open the doors and to give you the guidance that you need, because either His word is true, that his burden is light, His yoke is easy, or it's not. And I know when I'm pushing through and making things happen and burning the late night oil and forcing things my way into things, there's no burden is light, no yoke is easy. No, I know how to pull. I know how to push. I know how to make things happen at the expense of others, at the expense of a relationship, at the expense of my own life, my own enjoyment. In
Yeah.
God's word, Jesus says, I've come that you may have life and life abundantly. I don't think He's talking about work in excess as His abundant.
Right.
No, it's true enjoyment of life. And I gotta say right now, I'm enjoying life more and doing less while accomplishing infinitely more than I was in my first uh, entrepreneur days.
Yeah.
Why? Because I'm stopping long enough to find out how He wants me to do it and trusting Him that His way's better. Even though I feel like, oh, I can make this happen. I can take on, I don't know for about you, you have those things in business. You're like, I can do this. That would be me with websites. I know I can do this. I can put a design together and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be stellar. I know what I want to see. And I would push hours and hours and hours into trying to create a website. I've done it. All of our websites so far, I've done all those websites myself until now. Now the websites that I'm doing, I provide the vision. I provide this is what I need to accomplish, but I let others sow into it using their gifts that are so much better than mine. So much less time is used to accomplish those things so that I can focus on what I'm really created to do, what I'm supposed to be doing, pouring into others, loving life. You're like, that's impossible. No, it's really not. It's not impossible to find peace and enjoyment and fulfillment while letting God be who He is. Letting those around you be who God's created them to be. That's really the sweet spot. Every entrepreneur pushes so hard to see things happen. And I've noticed a whole lot. God's time frames to get things done are way different than mine. Mine is always accelerated. I want this done yesterday. And His plan isn't that. His plan always takes longer, which used to be crazy aggravating to me. But again, there was no peace in it. There was no joy in it. There was no life in it. I became a slave to a desire to accomplish things for God that was outside of His plan. because I wasn't doing it how he wanted it done. I
Right.
wasn't doing it when he wanted it done. And I wasn't valuing the other things that he said were a higher priority or should be a higher priority in my life than this thing he wanted me to accomplish. And it wasn't until I began to release that on my own and release really that pressure on myself to create perfect things. Everything I put my hand to, it has to be 100% me and done 100% in my time frames or sooner in order for it to be
Hmm.
acceptable and
Yeah.
allow others to be able to sew into it. I don't know, for a lot of you business people will understand there are certain things that you're convinced you can't let go of. For me, it was the website. No one could design it the way that I wanted it to design. And had seen people's capabilities and their websites, and I'm like, oh man, I can do that so much better. And so I would burn the late night oil. I would be pushing through and making this happen. And I'd create this big, beautiful site that was way more detailed and intense and hard to navigate than it needed to be. But it had
'Cause it's your
everything that I
baby.
needed out there. It's everything I
Yep.
wanted it to be. And then how you would host the website would change, or how you would link to files, the rules on that would change, or they would update to now it's HTML5 protocols, and so you'd have to do this. And I was trying to hold everything else together and run everything else while still doing the website maintenance, and things would start to falter, and I'd
Yeah.
get these messages, hey, I'm trying to purchase this and the link isn't working. Oh, hang on, I'll fix that. And I'd spend a few hours fixing that. And then the next week, hey, I'm trying to do this on your website, it's not working. Oh, that's because they changed the rules on me. I'm sorry. It's because of this, blah, 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 blah. And I always had great excuses, and people were forgiving. They were like, oh, yeah, we know how it
Yeah.
goes. But the actuality was, I wasn't able to be the best me in what God wanted me to accomplish because I was trying to take this other aspect on that I actually enjoy building websites. It's kind of fun to me. I like
Yeah.
that design aspect and having people engage with what I create on the website. But again,
Hmm.
my best after all that I've learned and worked and strove to create was probably a good level 7, maybe
Hmm.
7.5. And now we have a couple different web teams that are designing different aspects of the website, and its capabilities are things that I've dreamt about and couldn't do. Literally, one web team, they communicate in a language I don't even know what they're talking about. They're so far
Yeah.
beyond me, but all of a sudden I'm seeing this capability and this happening, and it's all happening so seamless. And you know what I'm doing? Enjoying my
Hmm.
family. You
Yeah.
know what I'm doing? Not stressing about some new website thing that might be rolling out about hosting or whatever. I don't have to touch it.
Right.
I know people that are so much better at it than I am are taking care of that. And now I can just focus
So
on being
cool.
who God created me to be in the moment with my family, with my staff, with the people that I'm coaching or the classes I'm teaching online. I'm not trying to also troubleshoot the website and do this over here and figure out the advertising strategy that's going to roll out
Hmm.
and this is going to change everything. I'm not doing all that.
Right.
I'm more free to be the person God really made me to be, and it's felt weird.
Hmm.
I'll just be honest with you. That
It's a new
transition
you.
period of I'm going to do everything to people are kind of doing all the stuff that I used to do, and now I just focusing on my key areas that really was what God wanted me to do in the first part the first place. And it was me who took all these other things on instead of relying on the tribe that he had surrounded me with, relying on those relationships he'd put in my life. And instead of trying to get them to be impressed with my level 7 capabilities when they're a level 9, I'm going to let them be a level 9, and I'm going to focus on my level 9 areas.
Absolutely. Okay,
and it's
so
so much better.
you've touched on a couple of things that I want to back up the truck, and I don't want people to get your words twisted here, okay?
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
so when you're starting a business, you're launching. So you come from the idea to now you're just starting the LLC. You're starting
Hmm.
um the concept. The very first time when you're thinking about making the website. Um
Yep.
there's no money a lot of times, right?
Right.
And in those moments, you might have to wear a lot of hats. You might have to do a
True.
lot of sweat equity because, um, you know, tight your funds are tight. Like you don't have, you know, 30K, 50K to
Right.
throw at a web team and all this, right? So, but what Josh is saying is once you get to the point where you've got some money coming in, instead of hoarding all the money to yourself, start hiring people that are better than
Hmm.
you and start offloading some of that responsibility so you can get your life back and you can enjoy
Exactly.
your family. You can, I know so many entrepreneurs, business owners that used to love sports or had great hobbies. They start a business and they don't do any of those things anymore. And you wonder why they're hostile when they walk into their office every morning is because they have not had any enjoyment other than maybe a nice meal or maybe a
Right.
back massage once every year. Like that's their enjoyment. Oh, well, I live for the business and money is my motivator. No, what you're doing is you're putting money on a pedestal. And right now, if you're a non-believer and you think that, Christians that are business owners are hypocrites because the love of money is the root of all evil is what you've been pitched. You know what? It's a tool. And if we steward that money more well, we're going to get more of it, right? We're not going to
Hmm.
but if you fall in love with it and you hang on to it, guess what's going to happen? You do put it on a pedestal. It is your God and it will run your life into the ground. And I've personally done it. I know exactly what you're talking about. What you just talked about, it hit hard because I remember how many times I was the man. And I, this is how toxic my leadership was. I love that song. You're the man, you're the man, you're the man. And I would play it in my car when I go to meetings because I'd pump myself up and tell myself I'm the man. In actuality, like you said, is at your best, you're maybe a 7.5. And, we need to find aces. We need to find an ace in this department, an ace in that department, which is a 10, right? We need to find a 10 in every department and once you get all those players, watch a business run 100% flat out.
Yep.
Watch what happens. And you're talking, that's when exponential growth happens.
Hmm.
And that's trusting the process, that's having faith that the right people have been placed into your life at the right time. And I love that message because even now with the entrepreneur theory, growing this business, right? There's so many hats to wear. And I just hired my first editor and I know that feeling. It's like you're handing your baby off, but at the same time, I know that my editor is going to do a way better job than me because he's also looking through a different lens, right? And
Hmm.
he's also not distracted with a million other things that are outside of his scope or spectrum.
But a lot of
So,
entrepreneurs, when they're first starting, don't think that way.
mm,
I'm gonna hand this off because they'll do a better job. What I've found most entrepreneurs, when especially when they're starting up, is I can't hand off video editing because only I can do this right, or only I know what I really want this to look like. And if I hand it off to somebody else, it may be a little different than what I am picturing in my head, and it's gonna take so much more work to get you to see things my way than just me doing it. That I'm just gonna do it. And
and
so
then
they don't
you
hand
don't
it
have
off.
bandwidth and then your family suffers and your friends suffer
Hmm.
and your
But
hobbies suffer. Hmm.
right. Even at startup though, I'm actually bouncing between two different businesses with we're starting at the same time, which most people in the business world would be like, you can't do that. you can't spread your focus on two different things because you'll be spread too thin. But in reality, this has been the easiest time we've ever had while keeping the other things going. Because instead of me, I'm like, man, I got to do these business plans. It's going to be so much hard work. I'm not telling myself it's going to be hard work. It's going to be easy. Why is it? Why is it going to be easy? Because it's not just me anymore. I'm
Right.
I'm working on this and I'm shooting it to a friend that's an accountant. Hey, can you look at these numbers? Does this look right? I'm shooting it to other people that have experience in this field that are outside of my area. So I'm not an intimidation to them.
Right.
Hey, I'm looking to launch similar to what you're doing. What you're doing is beautiful. I'd love to learn from you. Hey, what does this look like? Is this business plan, what am I missing? How can I get to where you're at? And like you said, those that are successful are usually pretty open with, hey, you know what? You're on the right trail. It's going to take some work to get it, but here, tweak this and this and this. And so now guess what? It's not on me.
Hmm.
Of course, I am the one filling out the paperwork to form
Right.
the LLC and get
You're
all these
assuming the
things done.
responsibility, but you're not assuming
But
the whole workload.
right, I'm trusting that the accountant is going to give me the right information, and I'm going to let him set some of those numbers for me because my numbers are skewed. I don't know, never done it,
Mhm.
and so he's kicking me back, and I'm not going to. Oh, I can do better than that, or I don't. You know, I know better. I know what's in my heart. I'm going to be doing this and that. So no, I'm taking their wisdom. I'm meeting with coaches that have done way better in business than I have, and I'm shooting them. Hey, what do you think about this? This is what I'm thinking about doing. And you know how much I'm putting out for all of these things? Zero. I'm not putting out any money for any of these things. It's just recognizing the tribe that God surrounded you with
Yeah.
and trusting them in the process.
Well, and if
You know,
you're around like-minded people that are helping you launch your idea, you're also going to find areas where they're going to want to collaborate with you, right?
mm-hmm.
What you guys are, creating as a cutting edge nursery, right? You guys have told me about it quite a bit. You know
Yeah.
how many avenues and facets go into a nursery? And I mean, I know there's even more to that, right? It's up to you how much you want to share, but um,
Yeah.
there's so many ways that labor can be used. There's so many ways that marketing can be done. There's so many ways
Mm-hmm.
that a computer system could be added. There's I just named off what, three or four things. I'm
Right.
sure I'm missing three or four other things. And imagine if you try to do all of that and create all of that, you will never
Mm-mm.
launch. You'll never get off the
Never.
ground.
No. And so many
So
people get intimidated by that. And so then they don't launch.
it's a stigma that happens with business owners. I've been that person when I'm launching an idea and I tell people about my idea, and then a year later, how's that idea going? Well, I haven't quite gotten it off the ground. If you want to know why you don't have confidence in yourself, it's because of those moments right there. A year later, you haven't progressed.
Mm-hmm.
And what Josh is
Well, and,
telling you right now is pure wisdom.
and for me, I can even like for let's use the gardens as example. And for in case you're curious, it's like plant nursery, not human
Right.
nursery, not little babies. Um, but I, God had started whispering this to me for 3 years now. But you know what? I didn't have the how, I didn't have the when. So instead of pushing forward and trying to make something happen, I just continued to, okay, do you have anything to say about this? No? Okay, well, I'm just going to keep doing what you've told me to do, focus on that. And now he's saying, okay, here's the how, here's the when. And his how is way different than I would. It's way cooler. That's just the reality of it. The cutting edge nursery it's going to be a real game changer to how we landscape, how we do community, how we eat. I know some of you are like, what? How is that? No, for real. This will change a whole lot of things and really help people restore some things that we've lost in the generations. And so,
Yeah. A little bit of
That's
context for our listeners would be, Josh and Kate are very knowledgeable in, natural health and nutrition through plants. And
Mhm.
I've personally sat with them and had dinner and spoke to them about some of these subjects. Very knowledgeable and very passionate. So I have no doubt that you guys are going to teach our community and the whole world how they can improve their lives with what has already been provided for them rather than just going to a grocery store for everything you consume.
right. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And it's just finding out, okay, why not just the what, what's the why? What's the how? What's the when? And that gives you the the strength to make it happen. That's the truth. If you
So
just
three
have a what,
years.
I'll burn myself out real fast on just what. Somebody says, "Hey, you need to eat this way because it's not even give you why. You need to eat this way." I'll try it once or twice. And I'm gonna burn out on that real fast because that does not
Yeah,
taste like my big juicy burger that I'm craving at the moment.
right.
And so you're like, okay, yeah, I understand that that's good, but whatever. But until you can get the how and the when and the why, now all of a sudden you found purpose. It's not just an idea or a good suggestion or something that, yeah, probably we should do. Now it becomes purpose, and purpose empowers you
Mm.
to make change. And that's what all of
100%.
these things are.
I agree. And okay, so 3 years of waiting for this idea. Obviously, you've got other businesses and you've been working on multiple things, right? So it's not like you've
Hmm.
just been sitting around stewing about
No.
an idea. Like, I want people to understand, like,
Yeah.
Josh and Kate have been very active in their current businesses and, the academies and everything. What this is,
Yep.
this is something that was put on their heart 3 years ago. Now, can you bring us through that process of, okay, well, how do you live with that burning desire inside of you, but you haven't found the right time to go yet, right? The right people haven't
Yep.
shown up, the right information hasn't got to, like, are you journaling, these ideas? Are you, late at night instead of watching TV? Are you researching things? Like, what does that process look like while you're in a
Yeah.
holding pattern until it moves forward?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Is being using your off times to do things that fulfill you and bring joy to you, not things that waste time. That is so huge. And so, yeah, I had if you're anything like an entrepreneur like me, then that means you probably have a million ideas and no ability to work on all of them. I want to see this happen. I had this idea for this, and you recognize this need here or this opportunity here, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this could be so cool." And you're doing all these and but if you tried to put energy into all of them, you would totally burn out and accomplish nothing. And so most entrepreneurs I know
Yep.
have focused on one element and they're working on that to really see that happen and putting everything else to the side. I feel like you're cutting yourself short when you do that because there's desires on your heart. Just because this is the one you put energy in and this is the one that's providing for you now, or you see the potential to provide for you, doesn't mean that that's the only thing in your life. It'd be like saying, okay, this burger, or no, you know what, even better. Because we're huge fans of Tropical Smoothie Cafe.
Okay.
I love Tropical Smoothie Cafe. Tropical Smoothie Cafe is providing great nutrition in an easy, quick to go shake. And so I can do that as a meal replacement. What we as entrepreneurs do is like, whoa, this is going to be stellar for me. This is going to really work. I'm going to do. And what we do is we buy that Tropical Smoothie Cafe shake and we eat that 3, 4 times a day for 18 months straight and then wonder why our nutrition is failing and why we're not feeling right and why we're seeing, things breaking down. We're like, well, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I can't do any of that and do this. that'd be more meals in a day than I need. I don't need them, right? Or
Right.
someone who tries to eat pizza all day. I watched a documentary about somebody who ate McDonald's for 30 days
Yep.
straight and what happened in their bodies when they just ate that. And it's not
Yep.
about doing just one thing. It's about opening it up. I'm like, God, you give me all these desires. How do you want to see these roll out? And letting him be the answer. Letting him answer for you instead of you trying to solve it or ignoring all these other things. No, the reason that dream is on your heart is because at some point in life, you're going to make an impact in that area.
Mm.
It's not up to you to decide how and when and I'm going to accomplish and do this. It's up to him. And then as you have your downtime, let's say it's late at night, the kids have gone to bed. Well, it used to be for me and my wife, we would be like, oh, finally, we got some downtime. Now we just can relax and we're gonna chill out and we're gonna watch some series on a TV that we've been waiting to watch the whole thing, and so we'll watch 3, 4 shows of that, or start a movie series and watch a
Hmm.
movie at night, and oh, that feels so good. We watched that whole thing, yay! And we, what we'd find is we'd wake up the next morning just deflated, drudgery, whatever. Because what we were doing at night was eating up time, not being fruitful time. Well, really, all day had been detracting from us. And instead of doing something that filled us back up, we did something that at least wasn't detracting from us. And so we settled for that. But if you keep doing things in life that, I'm going to push through this, I'm going to do
Yeah.
this, detract, you're going to get to a spot where you're like mentally break down, physically break down, exhaustion sets in, and you just like, I need a week. I literally fall apart.
Hmm.
Where instead, if you can replace those things, movies, or I'm not saying movies are bad, I still love
No.
movies.
Yeah.
I love going out to eat. I love doing some of the things that we would do to not waste time, but it didn't fill me in any way. And now for me, well, what really builds me up is some of those things that I've had to not focus on, like the garden. My late nights, I'd be scrolling through pictures of different nurseries, or hey, I want to integrate this, or I'm going to learn a little bit about this idea that I think could be instrumental in how I want to set up a garden nursery, but I've never heard of anything like that in existence. So I'm just going to learn a little bit more about that and we're going to research a little bit. And you know what? All of a sudden, that's building me up. That's filling me up. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I can't wait till it's the right time to do this because now I have all these ideas worked out. I've got all this ammunition. I have on my computer, I have a huge folder of here's my picture section. Here's my website link Word doc of places that I've done research on, and I really like the ideas presented here, and this could impact this area. And so I have all these different things, and then when God says, okay, go, He's already given me all the tools that I need. And so now it's not me striving to figure this out. No, you know what? It brought life to me all along the way, and now seeing it come to fruition way easier and faster than I thought because I've already done all the research in a fun and no pressure way. It's when we add the pressure to it. Okay, I got to get this done. At least that's how I work. If I got to
That's
get
how I
this
work.
done, you know what that means? It's not going to be fun. I got my deadline. I got to make this happen. But if I'm filling my downtime with things that are going to aid me in the future, and if I get it done tonight, whatever. And if not, it's no big deal. Then I've set my future self up for success in ways that I never dreamt about before. It is such an easy, relaxing ride because I know I have access to all the answers that I need through prayer, through trusting Him, and using my downtime wisely, relying on others that He surrounded me with. You'd be surprised that when you get to that point and you've done your research and you've talked to different people about it, now those people that you've done research with, you know what? They want to see their ideas make a difference in what you're putting your hand to. They're like, oh, yeah, we had that great conversation. We established that relationship. I remember this now. Yeah. When it was a no pressure, just, hey, I'm just trying to learn. I'm just picking your brain. What do you think about this? What if we ever tried to do something like this? They're like, oh, that'd be. And now they're like, hey, you're actually going to do it? You want to see it? Oh, we want to get on board with that. And it's so fun. It's a big tribe all working to accomplish the thing that you didn't have time or energy to be able to put in at another time. But now it's all in place. It's easy.
So I'm feeling something that I just got to bring up. Okay. So I read the book The Secret. I've watched the movie The Secret, right? Which is the universe, right? There's so many people that believe in the universe, and they believe that there's this energy that's conspiring to either help you or hurt you, and you can wrangle it if you know how to use these laws of attraction, right? And I understand that. Well, so what Josh and I believe is the exact same thing. We just believe God, right? We believe God is created, and now we can access that. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
building vision boards, guess what? Josh just built a vision board. He just saved files. So he's already creating his idea just as if you would build a vision board. I know that the world is gonna come up with its own way to edge out God, use the ego, right? But what Josh is telling you is like all of that stuff that he's building is set inside of him, and then he's actually creating the script for the future movie that he's going to star in. And that is a beautiful thing because you get to choose your outcome. You get to choose what direction your life will go by every choice that you make, every person that you hang out with, every song that you listen to. Everything is shaping you because it has been proven time and time again that we are a product of our environment. And so what Josh just gave you was a blueprint to create your life that you want by design. And what a fun way to put it together. I've never heard, I've talked to so many people. That was such a unique way to talk about it, have fun with it, store away your pictures, store away your ideas, you're doing research. Essentially what you're doing is you're daydreaming. And
Mm-hmm.
and as Ed Milet says, it's okay to dream. It's free. It's
Yep.
exciting. Your body doesn't know if you're dreaming or living in present moment. It just knows the feeling. And if you feel that feeling long enough, it will become a reality. And that's the law of attraction, right? That's what a lot of people talk about outside of the church. They're the same thing. They are the exact same thing. And that's what I love. They're parallels, right? And
Yeah.
when I started this podcast, I actually started in 2019. Here we are in 2023, and it's become a thing. There was a gut feeling that the idea was there, and I forced it in 2019. I forced it, and I wasn't going to be who I needed to be. And so I needed to go on a journey of traveling across the United States and figuring out who I wanted to be. And then the right time happened when I got to Florida, and I've surrounded myself with a bunch of people that were going the same direction that I wanted to go. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And not to make this story about me, but I want you to know that you hit the nail on the head, brother. And I feel every bit of what you're saying. And I thank you for sharing that. It's something that's not talked about when starting your idea. It's I got to be an achiever and I have to have an idea that nobody else has. No. If your idea is something that's already in the marketplace, but you know how to make it a little better, that's okay too. That's 100%. But you don't need to stress over it because all that's going to come from it is a half-baked product because you didn't have the skills to pay the bills, unfortunately. So I really love that. Now you're starting a new business. You're finding funding. You're doing all that fun stuff. You're building business plans. If you were talking to somebody who's just getting off the ground, obviously you've had a lot of great ideas come to fruition. What are some, other than creating that storyboard that you were that I was mentioning earlier, capturing ideas, what other advice would you give to somebody who's trying to get off the ground or create that purpose that's inside of them?
Maybe it's just because this is how I'm built, but find a way to make it fun. You hear about things like that all the time. I'm gonna implement some rewards for myself, and I'm going to just enjoy the process. I think the biggest thing for me was I was putting way too much pressure on myself to make things happen, and when I did, I slowed down my creation. What I was actually creating slowed down in its fruition because I was pulling the joy out of it. And like the word says, the joy of the Lord's the strength. And so when I was pulling the joy out, I was pulling my strength out to accomplish it.
Mm,
And
great.
and I would be working at the computer and falling asleep, or I'd be, telling my family, "Hey, we can't do family time tonight because I got to punch this thing out by this deadline I've created." And they're all disappointed. I'm kind of disappointed. I can hear them having fun in the background, and I'm like, oh, I probably should be there, but no, I got to make this thing happen. If instead we enjoy the process and trust God, trust His wisdom on the inside of you, trust His timing, and if He's saying, hey, carve out 3 hours this evening to knock it out, then have fun with it. Hey, guess what? God gave me this challenge, and He said if I carve out these 3 hours, He's going to use it. How awesome is that going to be? What do you think He's going to create? I don't know. It's going to be better than I can imagine, though. How much do you think He can accomplish in 3 hours? Way more than you and I could on our own ability. Let's trust Him. Let's see hey, kids, I'm going to do this. I can't wait to tell you about what I've created with God in the next morning. They're like, oh, sweet. Go, Dad. Now, what happened? It's not drudgery anymore. I'm building joy into it. I'm opening it up to my family and bringing them in it. I'm doing the same with my team members. Hey, I'm not saying I have to create this thing, make this happen, or putting that pressure on them. You have to do this. No, I'm opening up ways for them to enjoy the process.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, everyone's on board now. Not because they have to, because they want to, including myself. And things happen so much better, so much easier, so much quicker when you're enjoying it. No, time flies when you're having fun. So have fun with it.
Right.
And the time will fly and things will be produced and you'll see things go better than you can imagine because you're having fun with it.
Right. I can't believe we've already burned an hour on this show. Like,
Oh
I
my
feel
word,
like
that's
we've just,
crazy.
I know, I feel like we just started. I feel like we're just, we've passed the potatoes and now we're getting to the meat. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
that's what I love about talking to creators and talking to people like yourself is that we got so used to dreaming that we almost do it when we're talking. And it's an amazing ability to I don't want to call it fortune telling because that's not how I believe, but um, for for the lack of the term or for the lack of the definition I'm looking for is yeah, you can almost create your own reality or your own future because you've seen it so many times inside of your head.
Mhm.
And your brain is programmed to go to that feeling and it wants it more. And so when you're making it fun, it makes it so the labor is light, you know?
Mhm.
And I appreciate you saying that. It's not talked about enough. Now, are there tough times in a business? Yeah. Yeah. Is there stuff
Mhm.
that's not fun? Yeah. But if you're having some fun while you're doing things, guess what? Those tough tasks are done with
Yep.
a much lighter and funner attitude than I've been so many times in my life. My wife, I can't wait to have her on the show someday, and she can tell you all of the flaws that I have. But where I'm just mad about my situation, and nothing good comes from anger. Nothing.
Mhm.
And so I really appreciate you talking about
But I
that.
gotta tell you one more story
Yeah.
before you guys go. Uh, when when I was first launching a children's ministry within a church, my what I would do is I would give everybody the things that I thought was really fun to do, what I enjoyed doing. I made sure all my volunteers, my teams, my staff, they were doing all of those things. And the things that I really hated, I didn't want to put on anybody else. And so I kept those things. Things that you want to know what I'm really horrible at? It's the data processing,
Mm.
the visitor follow up, it's all that data stuff, and then doing the end of the month budgeting. This is what we spent. This is what was in the budget. Here's where we got to do this next month. All that, those kind of projections and those things. It drained me of life. I dreaded the 2 to 3 days every month I was going to be spending on the budget, on the data entry, all this stuff. But I hated it so much. I felt so bad for putting that on anyone else. That's just the truth. And I felt like I was doing a fantastic job protecting my team that was really becoming like family by not allowing them to touch that at all, have any pressure from that at all. And after doing that for a good period of time, I had this lady come up to me. She'd been serving with us for over a year at this point. And she said, "Hey, I see how much you protect your data entry time, all your follow-up things and the budgeting, all the financials. But hey, just in case you ever be interested, doing that stuff gives me life. I love seeing the numbers come together. I love following up with the visitors and seeing what drew them in and what answers I can provide to help them plug in even more. And I love doing the data entry and making sure everybody's information is right so that we can reach out to them and really pour into their lives whenever we need to. So if you're ever interested, that's what I love to do. I'm just putting it out there. I was like, what have I done? I've given away everything that I derived life from when God had already supplied for me over a year ago the person that he had wanted to take this on that was doing it so much better than I did. So when I handed over, guess what? My 3 days of drudgery, I got back. That's 24 hours a month of at work, maybe a little bit more that I got back when I handed it over to her. Guess how long it took her? 7 hours.
Wow.
I was spending 24 hours doing it. There were times when it was 3 hours up to about 7 hours was average because she enjoyed it. She's like, "Hey, do you mind if I call a few more people?" "Oh, no, don't do that. Don't do more customer engagement in business world to talk." Like, no, 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 we're done with that. No, she was like, "Can I just do a few more? Mind if I stay here a little longer?" And, I'm like, this is amazing. I got back time to do what I was really created to do. And she was launched into finally being able to use what God had created her to do, to bless
Yeah.
the ministry and to bless us as an organization. And it was all because I had it in my head that I had to do all the yucky things. And so I
Yeah.
want to encourage you, those of you that are like, okay, I know there's some drudgery parts to work, and so I just have to take that on. Be on the lookout, especially for those of you that are following God. God always provides for his purposes. And so there may be someone just waiting in the wings that God's already provided that just needs to be asked, that the opportunity just needs to be opened for them to take on, that they're going to derive so much life out of, and you'll be able to get back to the things that really
Yes.
bring you life. So anyway,
Yes.
side note.
Straight up, that is the truth. And it's letting go of that pride and ego to ask for help. Oh, I've been in those situations, and then you look back and you're like, why did I suffer for X amount of years when all I had to do is have a meeting with my team and go, guys, I'm struggling in this area. Can somebody help me? And she would have raised her hand 3 years ago, right?
Oh yeah,
Wow.
100%. Yeah, she would have been
Oh,
100. She was on board. And when you open up to your team, what's really the truth? they know you're struggling in that area before you
Yeah.
say it to them.
Oh,
And a lot of them have the answer to that struggle. They're just scared to say it until you approach them. And so when you open yourself up and you're vulnerable in front of them saying, "Hey, I'm really struggling in this area. Does anybody have any ideas of what we could do different? Does anybody have some?" Then they're like, "Oh, yeah, you know what? I had this idea the other. Hey, did you know so and so is already pre-qualified as this? You know someone certified at XYZ? Hey, blah, blah, whatever it is." And all of a sudden, problem solved. Life goes on so much better if we're just vulnerable, if we open up.
yeah. Vulnerability is definitely power. I think Cara Kelly was on my show and she had talked about how vulnerability gives you power, and that's spot on. And I love that everybody that see this is all by design. Everybody is coming on the show is the right time, because literally that was just a couple shows ago and you just hit the nail on the head again, man. It's like it's almost like I sent you my show notes and you're prepped. And I love that. That's the power of God. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. So
Yeah.
I have a couple questions for you before
Mhm.
we send this off. The first one is I ask everybody who's on this show, what is your definition of an entrepreneur?
Entrepreneur is someone that sees a need and finds God's solution for that.
Mm, unique, and I love it. Thank you.
Plain and simple, easy.
Plain and simple. That's pass the test 100%. Where can we find more information about what, you're doing with your ministry, your businesses, and how can people connect with you?
Right now, we have our ministry businesses are up on the web, that kind of stuff. We haven't fully opened up the opportunity to engage with the other things that we're working on with the garden nursery, and then innovative dog kennel, which sounds so funny. It's not my giftings at all, but he's surrounded me with people that can. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so those
I
aren't
can't
out
wait.
there much, but rootbible.com is where it's central location for all of it. So you can find the Kidman stuff if you're interested, or church tools. Those things are there.
Mhm.
Uh, Really would encourage you to get your family on Root Bible Academy. Sign up. It's free to sign up for an account. Classes are free, and then it's donation sponsored and donation facilitated. The whole thing is just by donation. So jump into a class, have your preschooler jump into a class. Elementary, if you believe that God has a place in your family, then you have to get them into places other than the quick Sunday morning when everyone is focused on everything else. I don't know if that's your Sunday morning. That's my Sunday morning. Get in the car. We got to get there. We got to do this. You do that. You meet with the people. You're chatting with them afterwards. And the whole time, what are you thinking about? Who I'm going to talk to afterwards and what are we going to eat?
What are we gonna
And
eat?
it's bam, 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 right? And so then you're moving right from that into the rest of the day, and you're immediately moving and forgetting a lot of the things that God wanted to speak to you during that Sunday morning. Where if you have some time during the week that you've set aside, this is my time to grow spiritually. This is my kids' time to grow
Mhm.
spiritually. And it's focused, it's highly intentional,
Mhm.
it brings so much fruit. So check out, do it, set up a free account, check one out, money back guarantee because you didn't pay anything to go. And yeah, see. And then we'll post on our Facebook pages. It's facebook.com, instagram.com/root of revival, both of them, as other business things begin to launch, just to let people know what we're doing.
The last question I want to ask you is, what is your message in all of this? What do you want the listeners to really take away from your time here? If you could tell them one thing as an entrepreneur, as a dream builder, as a kingdom builder, what is that message?
It'd be really when I relied on myself to accomplish everything, it was drudgery, it was hard work, and it failed way more than I wanted it to. But when I begin to rely on God and check in with the Spirit, Holy Spirit, what's the plan for today? And follow his leading, all of a sudden things became filled with joy, my purpose became established, and I can see him work things together for the good way better than I could have manufactured with my own wisdom.
Mm,
And you can finally enjoy the process when you're letting him lead.
right. I always hear hindsight's 2020. No, God did it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it. It's you can see how all later on in life you can see how all the pieces had to move. If you really take a inter-perspective look of all those music moving pieces, the statistical math that's behind that of it actually happening, and those people and that money, whatever it is that you need to complete your purpose, you almost statistically it's almost impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the awe comes into place. And so
Yeah.
if you just release and have a humble heart and a kind spirit, just like you do, my friend. That's something that I want to
Thank
give you an amazing compliment on is you have a humble heart. I've spoken with you multiple times, especially when our relationship was very young. And I'd be like, does this guy really know anything about business? You were just such a humble person that you would just soak it all in and you didn't have to be the star. And
you.
I look back at a lot of our interactions like, dang, I was the one trying to be the star. And I'm not saying I regret that, but I'm sitting here going, I learned a lot from you in those interactions. And your kind spirit is one of those spirits that, um, if you're around, sure, we may not have the answers and there might be some chaos, but I know we'll be all right. You definitely give that feeling. And I know that your family is very grateful for that because that's what a rock is. That's what, like, that big oak tree in the backyard that the family, the generation has enjoyed. That's what
Yeah.
that kind spirit offers is that rooted system, that root that you're not going anywhere. And that's why I like the name of your ministry and your business is because without roots you're just gonna get blown all over the place, and I love that. I've always commended you guys for that concept. When we moved here, I even said I want to grow roots where we're at, and here you are in my life. So I really appreciate that, and thank you for your time, guys. Down below in the comment section, I will link all of their websites. I will link all of their social media, and please do not hesitate to reach out to Josh and his wife Kate. And his
Yeah,
kiddos
for
are
sure.
amazing. They're teaching my kiddos so much about faith. So I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was fun being on here.
Absolutely. Well, take care and we'll catch you on the next conversation because I definitely want to have you back.
Sounds great.